Roots and zeros. Roots and zeros. A zero is what? What's a zero?
The first number.
What is zero? What's a zero? What's a zero of a graph?
The middle. Right in the middle.
Nope. A zero of a function. It's where the graph crosses the x-axis. Alright, it's where the graph crosses the x-axis. Now we're going to use that to make this slide make sense. Okay? Now the top part of this slide, you don't need. Alright, all that stuff you don't need. Okay? Alright, the bottom part though, we're going to take into consideration the polynomial x to the fourth plus 2x cubed minus 7x squared minus 8x plus 12. This long guy right here. Okay? The graph of that guy is right there. Alright. How many times does he cross the x-axis?
4.
4. Okay, now we're going to go a little more in detail with this instead of just saying how many times. Alright, now we're going to talk about where it happens at. Okay, so if you look real close, you'll see it happens here, 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 and here. And then if you look over here, it says the zeros of the function are at -3, -2, 1, and 2. Okay, the 4 places where it crosses the x-axis. Everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay.
Is this on
Yes.
Alright,
Okay. So that's where the zeros happen. The roots of it are just what context you're talking about. Okay, zeros are talking about the graph. Roots are talking about the equation. If you look at it, it goes from function form to equation form down here, but the same numbers. Okay, so roots and zeros is essentially the same thing. It's just what context you're talking about it. A graph or an equation. All right? But they mean the same thing. Everybody good? All right. Jump down to the last one. Skip the factors for now. Jump down to the last one. The x-intercepts of the graph are now put as a ordered pair, as a coordinate. All right, so -3, 0, -2, 0, 1, 0, and 2, 0. But they're essentially the same thing, numbers. Okay, good with that? Yeah? Okay. Where you get a little weird is the factors. Okay? Now, the factors of a polynomial... Let me rephrase this. The roots of a polynomial equation come from the factors. Okay? Remember last section when we factored, right? We got x minus 1 on the first one in your homework. When you just did it, you got 0 as your remainder, and then you factored it, right? You're turning that polynomial into those factors. The step after that to get those zeros or the roots is to solve those. So subtract 3, subtract 2, add 1, add 2. Okay? Hence why the signs go opposite, right? X plus 3 here, subtract 3 over, you get -3. X plus 2 here, subtract 2, you get -2. X minus 1 here, add 1, you get 1. X minus 2, add 2, you get 2. Okay? Now, the part of this where you need to know is this. What we're going to do today is we are going to take our roots, take our zeros, turn those into factors, and then turn those into polynomials. Okay? So basically 5.6, we took a polynomial and we broke it up into its factors. Today we're going to take its factors and put it back together as a polynomial. Alright? Kind of makes sense? Okay, this one's very important. This one's the only last time we're going to talk about imaginary numbers. Okay? Alright, last time we're going to talk about imaginary numbers. Okay. Yes. Write down the word title, write down the example. Okay, you don't need to write the words. Okay, now sometimes, the zeros aren't real. Sometimes your zeros are imaginary. Okay, so there will be i's in this. Okay? And when there is an I, it's like your face. Okay? Let me make sure I didn't offend anybody. Everybody's good here? Yeah, there's nobody with a pirate patch. Good. How many eyes do you have? You have 2 eyes. If you see 1 eye up here, guess how many you're going to have?
1, 2.
You're going to have 2. Okay? That's what? Eyes, everybody look at me. Eyes happen in pairs. Alright? Eyes happen in pairs. So do these. These eyes happen in pairs. And the pair of them are opposites. That's what this says. Okay? For example, if 3 plus 4i is a 0 of that polynomial, 3 minus 4i automatically is a 0 of that function. Okay? If the 1 is the 0 of it, the opposite is a 0 of it. Okay, very good. Alright, let's do one. Write a polynomial function of least degree with integral coefficients. That's all fancy math talk. You don't need to worry about that. The zeros of which include -1, 4, and -2. So here's how you set these up. You take those zeros, you set them equal to x. So x equals -1. X equals 4. X equals -2. You turn those zeros into factors. So you move them to the other side with x. So you make it x plus 1 since you're moving to the other side of the equation. X minus 4. And x plus 2. Move them to the other side of the equal sign, algebraically. Put them in a parentheses, put them all together. After that, what do you think you do? You start foiling. Okay. Start right here. Foil your first 2. Alrighty, so x times x gives you x squared minus 4x plus x, if it would look like an x, there we go, minus 4, all in parentheses, all still times that x plus 2 that's left over. What do you see here in the middle? Like terms, combine those. So x squared minus 3x minus 4 times x plus 2. Nope. Okay, now, what do you do next? Go again. Alright, except this time you got to do a trinomial times a binomial, which you've done before. Okay, you know how to do this. Okay, each part of the trinomial into the binomial. So x squared times x gives you x cubed. X squared times 2 gives you 2x squared. Alright. You're done with your x squared, move on to your -3x. So -3x times x gives you -3x squared. -3x times 2 gives you -6x. And then do the -4. Minus 4x minus 8. One more time, go through and combine your like terms. So x cubed minus x squared minus 10x minus 8. Okay, so next question. Write a polynomial function of least degree with integral coefficients. Those words will always be there. Alright, they're just meaning basically you don't want fractions. Okay. The zeros of which include 2 and I. 2 and I. Alright, so same setup. Take your x, set them equal to your zeros, which is 2 and I. But remember what I said about i's, they happen in pairs. So if x equals I is 1, that means x equals negative I is also 1, automatically. Okay, and you got to write that in there. Okay. After that, process stays the same. Move them to the other side. So you have x minus 2. X minus I. And x plus I. That process stays the same. What changes, though, is where you start. Okay, where do you think you should start? Start with the i's. Okay, start with your i's, because if you don't start with your i's, you're going to have like ix terms in there, and that's going to be ugly, and you're going to have to do a 4 times a 2, like a 4-term polynomial times a binomial, and you guys really, that's hard. Okay, so start with your i's. So leave x minus 2 alone. And FOIL out these two. Okay, so x times x gives you x squared. X times I gives you what? Other way. Do ix. Okay, plus imaginary times your variable. What's negative I times x? Negative ix. Negative I times x. Okay. Now, negative times positive gives you negative, and I times I gives you I squared. Okay? Negative I squared. Okay? When you FOIL, there will always be like terms in the middle to combine. More than likely. Not always, but more than likely. Okay? So what's ix minus ix? They're gone. They cancel each other out. Okay? So you're left with x minus 2 times x squared minus I squared. Blast from the past. What's I squared? Negative 1. Okay? I squared is negative 1. So that becomes x, let's see it here, x minus 2 times x squared, what? No, I squared is negative 1, and you're doing a subtraction with it, so it becomes plus 1. Good. Okay, everybody see that? Last step is what? FOIL it again. Okay, so I'm going to FOIL it so that way the terms line up in the right order, which basically means I'm going to do this into here, and then this, and I'm going to do it different, okay? So x to the third minus 2x squared plus x minus 2.
Don't you turn the I into
X equals negative 3. X equals 0. X equals 4i, which also means x equals negative 4i. Alright, so now we have 4. Okay, turn them 4 into factors. So add them to the other side, subtract them to the other side, move them to the other side. X plus 3. X plus or minus 0, doesn't matter. X minus 4i. X plus 4i. Okay. Now, from here, there are 2 ways you could do this, okay? And I'm going to show you both. Okay, I'm going to show you the way you guys probably did it this time, and then I'll go back and show you the way I do it. Okay? The way you guys probably did it is this. You did the foiling, you foiled your eyes first. Alright? And then you probably, if I had to guess, you took x plus 3 and x plus 0 and foiled them together too, right? Okay? Yeah? Or at least did it within, maybe not in the same step, but at least did it, right? Okay? So when you did that, you had x times x to give you x squared. Outsides gave you x times 0, which was 0. 3 times x gave you 3x. And then 3 times 0 gave you 0. So that just becomes x squared plus 3x. Everybody see that? On your I terms, you do x times x to give you x squared. This x times 4i. Now pay attention. X times 4i gives you 4ix. Yeah. Okay. 4i times x. 4ix. Negative 4i times x gives you negative 4ix. So what's 4ix minus 4ix?
Negative 4.
Nuh-uh. 4ix minus 4ix. Okay? They're gone. It's 0. Right? 4i minus 4i gives you 0. The x's go with it. They cancel. Every time. If they don't, you messed up. Okay? So now your last FOIL is negative 4i times a positive 4i, which gives you negative 16. Whoops. I didn't know if I was going to write my squared or my parentheses. Okay. Alright, notice the signs. At this point right here, before you square the I, this will always be a negative. After you square the I and make it negative 1, this will always be a what?
Positive.
A positive, right? Because I squared is negative 1. Negative 1 times the negative 16 gives you 16. So x squared plus 3x. And we're going to FOIL it with x squared plus 16. Which leaves you with another FOIL. Okay, so go one more time. X squared times x squared gives you x to the 4th plus 16x squared plus 3x cubed plus 48x. And then just because I'm OCD about it, I got to rewrite it to be in standard form. X to the 4th, 3x to the 3rd, 16x squared plus 48x.